My name is Kamal Tabusi, and I'm very happy to be able to bring to you this series of mayoral candidate interviews for those that are running for the Mayor of Liverpool City Council. We would have liked to have been able to bring people together, but in the current environment, that's been difficult. So we're presenting these interviews based on questions the community have submitted to us in order that these candidates respond to your questions. We hope we find value in these interviews. Good afternoon. I'm here today with Nathan Haggerty, who's running for Mayor of Liverpool City Council, representing the Labor Party. We've known Nathan for some time. I'm actually very happy to say that at the MRC and Nathan have a longer-term relationship. Nathan's currently on the board of Western Sydney Migrant Resource Centre as our current chair. But today he's speaking to us as the candidate running for the Mayor of Liverpool. He's currently a councillor at Liverpool City Council. Nathan, welcome very much. Welcome to welcome today, and I might get you to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you, Kamal. As you said, my name is Nathan Haggerty, councillor at Liverpool City Council. And as you mentioned, one of my other hats is chair of Western Sydney Migrant Resource Centre. But lived in the area my whole life, very passionate about Liverpool, raising my two children here, and happy to be here with you today.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Nathan, we've got some questions from the community that we've asked. We actually got quite a strong response from the communities. During the Delta outbreak, communities and individuals in Liverpool felt like that their voices weren't heard or they were overlooked. As Mayor, how can you work to actually ensure a strong voice for Liverpool?
Yeah, I can't agree more, Kamal. I think our area was, it was called the two Sydneys, and there was a very clear divide. Our area was stigmatised, and it was very disappointing to see some of the reactions from the government and the media and the way our area was treated. I was, in the thick of it, so to speak, as both the councillor and in my other roles. There wasn't a day that went by where I didn't get a phone call or a message or an email about someone who needed help. I was also front and centre in terms of standing up and speaking out on behalf of our community. And one thing I think I came away with is that's, for me, the true test of a leader is not when times are good and you get to go to the lovely dinners with the fancy wine and the good meals. It's when people are doing it tough and when times are tough, where are you? And I can tell you 100%, I was there front and centre. I was trying to provide information to the community through videos on my Facebook. I was hosting Zoom meetings. I was in the media. I appeared on ABC, on SBS, on the news, in the newspaper, and I fought on behalf of our community. And although lockdown only lasted 4 months, I think the recovery from lockdown and that stigma associated with Western Sydney and Liverpool will last for a long time. And just as I fought for Liverpool during those 4 months, I'll continue to always stand up and fight for Liverpool.
Thank you very much. Okay. Liverpool has limited infrastructure in the CBD for communities to be able to meet. These meeting spaces create social cohesion, harmonious communities, a vibrant community. What could you do as Mayor to increase the facilities and space available for communities?
Yeah, so I've been going around meeting with many of the community groups in Liverpool, and that's something that certainly comes through one conversation, is spaces to run youth programs, spaces to run programs for the elderly. And what I can tell you and your viewers is an ironclad commitment from myself. You would have seen that Liverpool's building a new library at the top of Macquarie Street, which means that library, the existing library, will be vacated. If I'm elected Mayor, I can guarantee to you that that space will be left in community hands.
Fantastic.
And my plan for that is to use it in the way that you've mentioned, which is let's use it for community groups. It's a unique space, and it's a great space, and it's a space that everyone in Liverpool has some great memories of. I remember spending way too many hours in there doing my HSC, and we should keep that in community hands and create even better memories. So let's use it as a space that community groups can hire out. And I know one of the things, I'll give Fairfield a compliment, one of the things that Fairfield does well is it hires out office space for community groups to use for meetings and office facilities, and I think that's a perfect area for that. So not just in terms of meeting spaces and running programs, but office space, office facilities, because we've got to build capacity with our groups, and that space under my leadership as Mayor will stay in community hands.
Thank you very much. We talked about community facilities, and Georges River is an important community facility, an asset that exists for all the communities of Liverpool, Indigenous communities, mainstream communities, most recently very important for the Mandaean community. What can we do to ensure clean water and the space for the communities to enjoy?
The Georges River is essentially the focal point on which Liverpool was founded. Governor Macquarie came out here and said, let's build a township on the edge of the Georges River, and it's been used in different ways for recreation, for industry, and I think now it needs to come back to the people. There are plans as that redevelops. There's a plan that starting from the Casula Powerhouse. I think we should have a walking track that I guess traverses the entire length of the Georges River. So if you want to, you can walk all the way up right around to where it finishes at the Bankstown Airport. I'll be able to speak to Canterbury Bankstown about continuing that pathway. So we need to return the river back to the people. One of the major issues is that it's polluted. Unfortunately, there are still heavy industries on the river, and while it's fine to promise certain things, you have to put the health and welfare of the community first. If that water is unsafe, then we can't have people swimming in it. What we can do is work over time to clean the river. We have been doing that, and there's a few ways we can do that. I'll get a bit technical, but I guess cleaning the water before it gets into the river. So along our creeks and waterways, we make sure we filter the water. And over time, we'll find that the water is clean and is available for uses. Now, I spoke to some of the farmers who have farmed on the Nepean for about 50 to 60 years, and they told me it took about 15 to 20 years to clean the Nepean up. And as you probably know, there is a baptism pool for the Mandaean people out there, and I'd love to see a baptism pool on the Georges River that the Mandaeans could use, but also any group. When it wasn't being used, it would be a public facility, and we could use it for everyone. And one of the things that I'm privileged to do as a councillor is meet with different cultures, meet with different religions, and one of the things you find is there's a lot more that binds us together than pulls us apart, and water is a common theme there. And I think there's a lot of potential to use the Georges River to reflect our diverse communities and our history, going right back to the Indigenous people. I know they used to meet right down where the weir is, which is sort of where the saltwater and the freshwater meets. But that was a known meeting spot for the Indigenous people, and I think it should continue to be a meeting spot for people of Liverpool for years to come.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. The communities that we work with are diverse, and some of those communities are hard to reach communities. We've used the example of, say, the Fijian community, which in itself is a diverse community, and there are pockets within that community that are hard to reach. How would we ensure that we would engage and work with the diverse communities in Liverpool, and particularly the hard to reach communities?
Yeah, I think one of Liverpool's great strengths is its diversity, and it's certainly a strength that it has that a lot of other cities in Sydney don't. Some of the other city councils and cities have a couple of main cultures. I think we have a diversity of diversity, so to speak, and I think that's one of our strengths. So what we can do is what we have done. I know the MRC has been around for 40 years, and council has worked strongly with them, and that's been a very successful partnership. And I think the MRC are basically the eyes and ears on the ground in terms of what's happening out in our community as migration patterns change, as new people come into Liverpool, as other people come out of Liverpool. We make sure we have that strong relationship between the MRC and other organisations and council to make sure that we know both short, medium and long term how we react with those communities, and the Fijian community is one example. So.
Thank you very much. The communities of Liverpool want Liverpool to be that vibrant, harmonious city. They want to be able to experience family time outside, and example have been used akin to Parramatta. What can we do with Liverpool to bring that vibrancy to the city?
Yeah, that's one of my personal complaints, and it's one of everyone's personal complaints, is that Liverpool's been trying for probably close to a decade to invigorate the night economy. There's a few things that we have done, and there's a few things we can do. Council recently joined a 24-hour economy working group in Sydney. So a bunch of council stakeholders and other groups that are involved in areas that have 18 or 24-hour economies. So learning from those who've got to work, such as Parramatta, but there are other places that do it well as well. And it's not just about learning what Parramatta did right, but learning what Parramatta has done wrong. So, I don't want to cast aspersions on other places, but I know some people feel that Parramatta lost its soul as the towers went up and the place changed. And one of the things I want to maintain is that Liverpool keeps its soul. That if you were to just be dropped in the middle of Liverpool, you're still in Liverpool, but it would have that vibrant 18-hour, 24-hour economy and nightlife.
Something unique to Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's the clone.
Yeah, and there's a few things we can do in that regard. Council is best when it facilitates, when it's not so much leading from the front, but it's helping lift people up. And so one of the ideas that I'm very supportive of is nighttime markets. So during significant periods of the year where people are celebrating perhaps the spring harvest, what would be the spring harvest in the Northern Hemisphere, you'll find that each culture has its own special celebration, and the same sort of around March, April, they have a special celebration. So we can combine those strengths of Liverpool, take those festivals, council can help facilitate that. We can have some night markets, we can have some stalls, and what that'll do is that'll show people that there actually is a customer base. There are people in Liverpool willing to come into the Liverpool CBD and spend their money on good food, good drinks, good entertainment, if people bring it. So we've got to encourage the people that want to invest and the business people to sort of go, okay, there is life in Liverpool. And one of the good things I think is we're starting to see there was a rather well-known restaurant that's opened up at the top of Macquarie Street. I think that's a sign of confidence in Liverpool, and I'd certainly, my door's always open to anyone who wants to invest in Liverpool and support small business. So.
Thank you very much. Western Sydney MRC is a local community place-based organisation. It works with communities, and communities expect the organisation to be able to provide its service and represent them in their needs and what they would like to achieve and in their aspirations. What can we do to make sure that we meet this community expectation?
Well, I think the MRC's shown over the last 4 months that it is an integral part of the Liverpool community. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the MRC saved lives during the last 4 months. It worked well with health, it worked well with council, it worked well with the communities through its knowledge, its contacts, and the fact that it's embedded in our community. And I think that's a strength to you and the staff, and I'll also give a compliment to the board.
Absolutely.
They do a good job as well. And it's about, when we look at other areas of Sydney, and particularly in Melbourne last year during their outbreak, things got out of hand pretty quickly. And I think when you look at what they don't have and what we have, I think they're your strengths. So those strong relationships, both up and down. So when I say up, I mean with places like council, with the state government, with health, and down, those sort of strong links in the community. But you can't do that for free. Your staff can't be working, 24 hours a day. At the end of the day, you need to be funded, and you need to be funded properly. And one of the things we saw is the government recently talking about Westinvest and this $5 billion it wants to splash on Western Sydney. $5 billion in Western Sydney is badly needed, but from what I could understand, they were talking about infrastructure, bridges, community halls, pools. Again, lovely. Would love to see them, but I'd also like to see $5 billion invested in people, in place, and in the community. One of the things that came out of COVID is that we have some people that have suffered pretty dearly. There's trauma. There are people that have lost their business, lost their life savings, and a new bridge or a new road is not going to fix that. So we need to invest in people, and organisations like the MRC need to be front and centre in terms of leading where that investment goes and running programs and assisting our community.
Thank you very much, Nathan.
At this election on December 4th, vote 1 Nathan Haggerty for Mayor, top of the ticket, a 1 in the box, nice and easy. And for the wards, the same, vote 1 Labor.
Western Sydney MRC, powered by community.